Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for FourCast is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of FourCast is brought to you by MailRoute.info. MailRoute is a secure hosted service that provides enterprise-grade virus and spam filtering to companies of any size. Try it right now, absolutely free, at MailRoute.info.
What sort of future do you think we're heading for? How will we live as we slip into the 21st century?
Welcome to FourCast episode 66. I'm Tom Merritt.
And I'm Scott Johnson.
Route 66. Down the future highway.
Is that what this is?
No.
I'm pretty excited to be on it with you once again, traveling the highways and byways of the future world we're all headed for. And we have two awesome guests, I understand.
We do. Joining us from the Showbiz Sandbox podcast, he's an entertainment technology consultant, Jay Sperling, Reich. Sperling, good to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Have you back on a show. This is the first time you've been on FourCast.
Yes, and as I mentioned during the pre-show, or short pre-show there, Randall Bennett and Glenn Rubenstein from last week took all of my predictions.
That's okay.
Repeating everything they said, except for that whole stuffed animal thing. That was I
weird.
never would have come up with.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't you. But you can repeat everything. You just kind of change the order in the names. It happens all the time. How many times have we had Water Wars?
Isn't that called blogging? Isn't that?
Yes, it's called blogging. Exactly. Speaking of, now you've insulted our other guest. Great. He's a blogger. Nice. Kevin Purdy, contributing editor at lifehacker.com, author of the Complete Android Guide. So he's also an author.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Good to have you along as well. All of y'all have done tech news today, so you're familiar.
Yes, I believe the last time I was here, I insulted Microsoft. If I'm not mistaken.
That's okay. You can do that anytime. Let's start off with a prediction from a listener, and be interested to see what our guests think of this. Zachary wrote in to fourcastpodcast@gmail.com, said, my prediction is that in the nearish future, say 30 years, people who play a very critical role in some part of a profitable organization will be genetically modified to not regulate their body temperature. I know this sounds weird, just hear me out. A lot of energy is spent on maintaining a normal body temperature, so imagine what people could accomplish if they could devote that energy to thought or some other more important process that computers aren't fully capable of yet. This would require the room's temperature that these people worked in to be meticulously monitored. Think like how a server farm has to be kept from overheating. Just a thought.
So your best brains would be in these, climate-controlled areas that would be so precise to the point that they would never, ever once have to go, I got to put my jacket on, it's cold in here. Or, I got to take my jacket off, it's hot in here. Or even better yet, put them in some kind of gelatinous tub that they sit in with their arms like this, and they just sort of, think of things that everybody else can act on. They're like
Didn't I
precogs
see this
in a
movie?
way.
Wasn't it Minority Report?
Well, those are the precogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are
yeah.
precogs. But I love it. I think it's a great idea, man. I mean, I wish they could do this to me. Let's go. Let's get the home version going.
You just want to be in a temperature-controlled room and never move?
Yeah, basically. I mean, if his hypothesis is correct that we'll get our best work that way out of these kinds of minds, assuming my mind is capable of great things, then let's do that. I would like to see what I'm capable of and just sort of, I don't know what that means for how you would input, output stuff. In 30 years, maybe we finally tapped into enough brain power that we can control things with our minds and not even have to move. But it does kind of make sense that if you want to maximize the brain power, the computing power of a human brain, you've got to figure out a way to isolate it like that.
I'm thinking that if Zachary's right and we take the greatest minds at our companies and our institutions and we put them in a climate-controlled room, we are putting the greatest thinkers of our society in the most untenable situation. If somebody wants to bring down our system of life, all they got to do is go hit the thermostat or break a window, and all of a sudden these people are dead. Kevin, are you following this prediction here?
I am sorry. I had some Skype difficulties, actually.
So basically Zachary's saying we take the smartest people in the world and we put them in climate-controlled rooms and remove their ability to self-regulate their body temperature so that energy can be used on thinking.
So turn them into servers, and
Yeah,
then when
exactly.
things go wrong, suffocate them with halon gas. Is that?
We hadn't got to the halon gas part, but I think it follows.
I think that there are a lot of science fiction novels based on taking the smartest people in the world and putting them in X, and most of those are dystopian. So I would probably be against that idea.
All
Just
right.
based on long fictional history of what happens when you take geniuses and put them all together.
Right. Don't put all your eggheads in one basket.
Yes,
And also,
they'll come up
you know
with
what?
a monster
A really
that
good-
will overrun the world.
Yeah.
Exactly. And another really good point I should have made is, and this is now arguing against what I was arguing for before, but you could argue that the greatest minds in humanity are that because of their interaction with things around them. So you can't just keep them in a room. They have to get out and see whatever it may be, other cultures, other ideas, bounce it off other great minds. If you don't have that, or at least give them a virtual playground to connect with all of these people, then what are they really having a great mind about? They wouldn't have that actual human experience to draw from, and therefore have even better ideas than they would have
Isn't
otherwise.
Facebook enough? I mean, technically, isn't that why Facebook was created?
Right. You just pipe in Facebook,
Right.
and then they have social interaction.
Right. So they can
man.
just stay in their rooms, their climate-controlled rooms, with no jackets, maybe just a short-sleeve shirt and some halon gas, I believe, and they'll be good to go.
Yeah. As long as you got that container, just in case they get a little rowdy.
Indeed.
Try to take over. All right, let's move on to our short-term predictions. These are things you think will happen sooner rather than later, maybe in the next few years. And Kevin, let's start with you. What is your short-term prediction?
Okay, standing desks, which is in the the sphere of life hacker. It's a very popular thing, but most people don't know about them. Basically, the idea of standing while you work. A lot of programmers, a lot of productivity heads are doing this. The higher level is treadputers or treadmill desks, where you're walking while you're working. I would love it if in the near future people started realizing that sitting for 40 hours a week was really unhealthy, and more commercial and more kind of retail push behind getting people to try standing while they work for a little bit. It could be like the running craze of the 80s, like people will be like, oh, I'm standing while I work, and all these companies will do it and they'll write about it in the long term as like this crazy fad. But I think it would be a really big benefit for all of the US if people were standing while they're working.
So don't you think the big hitch to this is mass market availability? So when do I get to go to I don't know, IKEA and get my standing desk? Because right now none of that stuff exists there or at Office Max or at any of these places that you would get quote unquote desks. And so people aren't really being encouraged by the marketplace to do this. I would do that in a heartbeat. I think about this all the time. I need more excuses to get up and stand around.
Tax credit. Obamacare, that really popular piece of legislation that everyone loves, that'll be like, they'll have a tax credit in it, and people will get $2,000 off their standing desk if they install it in their home or their office. So
Socialized varicose veins. That's what you're talking about, Purdy.
Absolutely. Socialized, calloused feet. That would be awesome.
The foot death panel ordered me. So, I have a serious question about standing desks. I have been in that situation. I worked at a radio station where they made us go to a standing situation for a while. Same idea. Its principle's been around for a while.
Also, that gives you more voice oomph, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to increase your energy, open your diaphragm, all of that sort of stuff. But I have found that what it does is actually tires you out, and then you actually have less energy. So is there a happy medium in people who are really enthusiastic about this? Is there a way to offset that, or do you just, if you do it every day for a long time, you end up getting used to it and it's not a big deal?
Gina Trapani, the founding editor of Lifehacker, has been gradually ramped up to it, to standing most of her work week. She said that her first week was painful. And she got done at the end of the day and just flopped on the couch. But I just think we're all pretty conditioned to sitting for most of our day. I don't think you necessarily need to stand for 40 hours of your week. You don't need to stand the entire time you're doing your job. It would be weird if I was standing right now and talking to all y'all, but I think that we could probably, there's some happy medium and adjustable desks and that kind of thing.
Well, it's kind of a when do you need to shift over to the other side? Because right now we can all be better about getting up every, half hour and walking around for 5 minutes and doing something like that, and get us to the point where we're kind of not sitting for 40 hours anymore. We're only sitting for whatever. and then move toward the other direction, which is most of the work is being done standing, and then the resting is being done sitting. Kind of just switch roles between the two activities. The real question is, again, when can I buy it easily, cheaply, and have it make sense for my workflow? And that's the part that seems screwy to me, that like that'll take some time. I'm 6'4", and I'm trying to imagine that desk. And it would have to be adjustable in a very real way to match a lot of different people. My friend who's 5'8" is going to have trouble compared to me at 6'4". And, chairs are fairly adjustable and desks are kind of standardized. But as soon as you're standing, that seems like a whole new bag of cheese to me.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, but they've been doing it at GM, and starting with Toyota and the Japanese manufacturers, and moving into America. Those guys stand all day, and they have all these ergonomic rules about reaching 15 degrees up and 15 degrees down, and guys who stand all day and put together cars. So it's not something that's totally alien, and that's why it's also a prediction.
I also think you have to think it through before you start doing it, because there's certain areas of your work, like in my case, the camera. Should be adjusted as well.
If it weren't for the episode bar, we'd be seeing Tom's belt.
That's right, exactly. No, Scott. If we did break every half an hour to stand up and walk around, or vice versa, sit down because we're standing up, wouldn't that kind of defeat the whole purpose of the climate-controlled human?
Well, yeah. See that? Yeah, this kind of kills that other prediction a little bit. But that's another thing we see on the show all the time. I just think if you're going to be levitated in a tub of goo, you'll be fine because it's all controlled and maintained. You're like Kobe beef. One day you're going to taste really good because you've been hanging in like the harness. So you're going to be awesome.
So future prediction is we're going to be eating one another. Is that?
Well, partially, yes, but that's just because that's only when we're tender and raised with classical music. But in my case, I sit a lot and I hunch over a Wacom tablet and I'm in front of this microphone a lot. I actually have. I desire to be up and moving around more during a work day, but I just do it less. And for me, it's just an issue of, well, maybe I got to figure out a better workflow to say, all right, this is a cutoff point for where I now stand up. So what things can I do standing up? And that's been a trick for me. So yeah, I don't know. This is a hard call. I actually think you're probably right. I think we're headed toward more ergonomic ways of getting work done, because sitting here is probably killing me right now. But at some point, I would like a better way. So I like your prediction.
You just got to hack it. You can raise any desk and make it a standing desk if you put your mind to it.
Oh man,
and your drill though.
Yeah, exactly.
All those old programming books will finally come in handy. You can just put them underneath each leg.
I mean, really, when is the last time you took that old HTML 3.2 for beginners out? you could try selling it back for 50 cents at half price books, or you could use it to help make a standing desk.
O'Reilly Elevation.
Yeah.
Actually, when I worked at Creative Artists Agency, this was in the mid-'90s, there was an agent who had a standing desk. He was the only person. He didn't even have a chair in his office. He had a couch for clients, but then he stood behind this desk. It felt like you were walking up to a banker and a bank teller. And he loved it. And he had a bad back. And everybody thought he was nuts at the time, but now it does seem to it's becoming more and more of a trend.
All right, well, Sperling, let's move on to your short-term prediction, something you think will happen sooner rather than later. What do you got for us?
So I guess predicting the Oscars is probably not a. I mean, that's
it's short-term. We've had people do election predictions before.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, no, but I think given that I work in the entertainment field, I guess maybe I'll stick with, at least for the short term, an entertainment prediction, and that is, I believe, given what I believe it was Randall Bennett was saying last week, that the cost of production and video production and film production in general is going down, and it will continue to go down as the quality rises. And so because technology, of course, will help that, I believe that more and more independent films will be made. And so I'll just stick with movies because Randall kind of covered television last week. But I think that, everybody kind of bemoans the state of the film industry, and that how everything that's made is made for a big, huge market, at least by the studios. And the studios 6 studios control the entire industry. So I would say that over the next 10 to 15 years, we may be headed into not another golden age like the Hollywood studio system, but more like the 1970 or 1967, really, to about 1980, where you had movies like Mean Streets and The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, movies that were made by auteurs, as some people call them, but on a budget instead of with big studio dollars. So, and I also believe that unlike in the 70s, where all of those films came out of the U.S., or at least most of them, I think you're going to see lots and lots of, well, I guess international offerings. So you'll see movies from the UK and France and Germany start to cross over into the United States. So kind of summing the whole thing up, between digital cinema propagating into movie theaters, which I think will begin to, the number of them will begin to decrease due to disappearing release windows, I think you're going to see that the studios will lose some of their power as digital cinema offers the cable TV type channel offering to motion picture theaters.
Wow. So the theaters would really benefit from this, it seems like to me, because they're trying to fill seats. And if you can get some kind of hot property, I mean, imagine if they do a sequel to Dr. Horrible Sing-Along Blog, and I may have heard that they were. Anyway, so if they're doing that, and if a theater knew that they were going to get exclusive access to all 3 parts or whatever it is for different showings, kind of like how the radio, like This American Life does their thing every year, where you can go to a movie theater and watch Ira Glass and all the contributors get up on stage in high def, being broadcast live from Chicago or wherever they were,
right.
New York. And it seems like those kind of events are going to become more and more prominent. We had a ball at that. I went to that with my sister, and we had so much fun. We're big, This American Life fans anyway. And it was this really great way to connect that you don't have with a typical movie. A typical movie is like, there's a 2-hour movie coming, and here we go, everybody line up, and this really, I have no attachment to any of this. But with that, I had like a real attachment, and I know that, that fans of the original Dr. Horrible would be, beside themselves with excitement about seeing that, in a movie theater and doing it with their friends, and knowing that we're all kind of a collective bunch of people interested in this, what used to be this little web project. And so I'm all for this. It just seems like it gets a little fishy when you start showing up in a movie theater, and then suddenly the government or whoever, the MPAA, go, we should have more purview over this development, and then they start getting their sticky fingers in it, and that's when I get nervous.
Well,
if that's the case, I'd rather just get it on my computer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the MPAA exists so that, television and newspapers know which films to advertise and how they should be advertised. And really, the MPAA exists because of the studios. So if the studios are losing power, then and will continue to lose power, then really the MPAA is going to have to change, which I think is happening anyway. But really, if you take a look at music, and maybe I'm not explaining this properly, but if you take a look at what happened with music from, say, the late 80s, early 90s, all the way through to today, you had record companies which were incredibly powerful, and the only way to release your music was to go to a record company, sign a traditional record, traditional contract with a record label, and they would distribute everything for you. But now you can distribute things as Radiohead did, through the internet, direct to fans. And because of that, you can record an album in your basement and release it for $500 and a laptop. You can record an album and release it. And all of a sudden you have bands like Arcade Fire or Clap Your Hands Say Yeah. I mean, the list goes on and on. But there has never been a better time in independent music than there is right now. And so I think if you look at that and you look at what happened in music between, say, 1990 and 2005, 2007, and then look at what's happening in motion pictures and film and television, you can kind of see the same thing is happening. The production equipment and the technology is there to make big budget productions on a shoestring budget. And much like Kevin Smith is doing, he's taking his own film out. The ability to self-distribute your film is becoming more and more a real option.
Well, not to pound a subject that we could turn into an entire episode, but to me, it just seems like if, when Janet Jackson got up and whipped out one of her boys in the middle of live TV and showed everybody there on Super Bowl.
I was going to say some people would call those girls, but yes.
I think it sounds funnier to call them boys. But anyway, so she does that, and that freaks everybody out, and the FCC has a canary. Well, if there was if that was on the internet over some sort of video cast thing, over Twit even, nobody's going to throw a rod about it. It's just going to be, I mean, fans might. Some people might get upset. Others might go, woo. But either way, there's no governing body that's going to fine a bunch of people and kind of do weird stuff like that. The minute you start putting me in a movie theater with my content and somebody finds it objectionable for some reason, it seems like that opens up the door for the FCC to go, all right, we're going to have to, MPAA can't do anything because that's part of the studio system, but we're going to step in and protect our children from the likes of you. And that scares me a little bit.
Yeah, the MPAA, this is you talk about short-term predictions. I think this year or next, you're going to see some huge changes within the Motion Picture Association of America, because their rating system this past year has completely fallen apart. And they haven't had a real leader in the past almost 12 months now. So, that's a prediction that's kind of easy to call. They will definitely be changing.
Kevin, what do you think of this? From your perspective on Lifehacker, you're enabling a lot of people to do this sort of DIY behavior.
Yeah.
Do you think it can actually surmount the studio system and replace it?
I think so. You mentioned about the cheaper cameras. I think that right now I know that Final Cut Pro is fairly, bridges the divide between amateur and professional, and that you can make pretty good films with Final Cut Pro. I still think that to democratize, filmmaking more, there needs to be, maybe even cheaper and easier to use software for editing, because, it's really cheap to shoot things now, not so easy to put it together in a way that looks reasonably professional, reasonably good, unless you got the skill and the investment. One thing I was thinking is that I remember reading about, whenever I'm a Wikipedia guy who tunnels in, and 8 hours later I'm reading about some movie that started in midnight showings at regional theaters, and I've never heard in Buffalo, Syracuse, anywhere I've lived, I've never heard about a midnight showing at a local theater. But now with tweet ups and all the ways that groups can get together and meet up and sign something, it would be really cool if local theaters could just if a group like the, Social Media Club of Buffalo wanted to screen some movie about Twitter, they could convince a local theater that there are 80, 90 people who want to see this movie, and the theater could just go say, okay, show up at 7 o'clock and we'll stream it. We'll download it and we'll play it for you. And that would be really cool. That would be one way that I wish that filmmakers could, kind of do what they did in the 70s. And, if the major studios and the major theaters don't want to show the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, well, we'll just, go on the internet and see who wants to see it.
Well, right. And I think that kind of programming as, by flipping the television channel, that kind of fracturing of motion picture programming is going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think 15 years from now, 20 years from now, it's certainly a possibility, and a realistic one.
All right, let's move on to the long-term predictions. These are more of the in 100 years sort of thing. And Sperling, we'll stay with you. What do you see looking a little farther down the road?
What do I see looking a little farther down the road?
Metaphorically.
Wow. That was the one. Well, okay. Oh boy. Really, I think that machines, computers in this sense, will be more part of our bodies. Somehow we will actually have machines inside us and evolve into kind of hybrid type people. Not born that way necessarily, but more and more will be like Darth Vader in a way, where machines will become a part of us as certain things fail.
So our standing desks will just be built in.
Well, I don't know about a standing desk, but certainly a prosthetic arm, certain sensors for the brain, potentially. More and more. I mean, look, we already have that with the heart. We have, artificial heart pumps. And in fact, who is it? Our former vice president, Dick Cheney, has, an LVAD. So it's certainly possible. And I think really what needs to happen is they need to become miniaturized, and all of that technology needs to become smaller and a little bit more capable of interacting with human tissue, really, is the problem. So, yeah, I would say more a merging or convergence of humans and microprocessors.
So on the show, we always get these predictions about our cyborg future and how we'll harvest organs that are made from our DNA. So we'll extract some DNA and build a new liver, because my liver is expected to die in 3 years or whatever, so they can swap it out and bam, new liver. And it's not going to reject it because it's my liver. Your approach is a little bit more, a lot more cyborg. It's a lot more sort of let's have machines and tissue work together. Which of those two options, which do you prefer? Do you like the idea of sort of, foreign intelligent metal in your system that is keeping that heart 20 years longer, running the way it should, or would you prefer us to get to the point where we can just harvest a new heart and even stick one in at home if that's an option to us or whatever? How which way would you rather have your heart?
I would say probably the best way is
served cold.
Cooked on a grill. Yeah, I don't know. I would say definitely the tissue route rather than the mechanical route, mainly because if you're doing that already, if you're able to actually create a liver, create a heart, create lung tissue from scratch or from stem cells, think about everything else you're able to do. I mean, my long-term prediction initially was not a cure for cancer, but turning cancer into a chronic condition where it's not something that kills you necessarily, but it is something like HIV where you take medication on a daily basis, or thyroid conditions where you take a medication to regulate the cancer and the metastases rather than having them kill you. In 100 years, that very well might be possible. So again, if to answer your question directly, I think the tissue route, being able to harvest, I guess, your own cells and putting them back in your body, that is certainly a much better route.
I like the idea of using 3D printers to print out our own replacements, be they organic or not. You can just print out a new liver before you head out for the weekend.
So really, tissue printers or cell printers, really.
Yeah.
You just kind of, yeah. That's not a bad idea. Hold on, I'm going to write that one down.
That one's probably not that far off.
Have you patented that already? Because I could tissue printers. That's not bad.
Kevin, have you? That's a real thing. Have you heard of that before? The tissue printing?
No.
Yeah,
that's more IO9 than Lifehacker.
Yeah, probably. I should do a little search on that, but I know I've run into that.
I'm all about the mechanical. Can you imagine if there was a device that actually let you really see your calories for the day? There are 3,000 like smartphone apps that you can type in food as you're eating, but nobody does it. And if you keep a food journal, it's a best estimate. Can you imagine if the world population could see what they actually ate every day in a number? Like you check your device at the end of the day, or you just RFID up to your computer, and it's like 2,600, and you're like, oh, yes, burritos are full of sour cream. That would be awesome.
It just shows up on your smartphone.
Exactly. It would change healthcare in a huge way if people could actually see the calories they were eating, I think. So I would be all about mechanical implants and, triggers and stuff like that.
That's a great idea. You're basically arguing for one of the problems we have with overeating in this country and other countries, I think, is that it's this immediate access. I can go down to the corner gas station and I can buy 3 Twinkies and a thing of nachos, and I can go home and pound that down my hole and just think, this is the greatest thing ever. And you don't have to think about it. Right?
Yeah.
So in your idea, it's like, it's like you have to think about it while you're eating it. You see some kind of heads up, or you get something that says Twinkie, will kill you or something right before you eat it. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and people with gluten problems, peanut allergies, that type of thing, they could spot something sneaking up on them or something like that. I would really love it if there was an implant that showed, what your food was doing to your bloodstream as you ate it. I'm more in favor of mechanical implants than organic supplementation.
I want the mechanical implant that just changes the taste of whatever I'm eating to something good. So I can eat the healthy stuff, but it still tastes like In-N-Out burgers
or Twinkies.
Kale
since
burgers.
We started with Twinkies.
Yeah. I'm eating a loaf of like whole grains and a kale burger, but it tastes like I'm having an In-N-Out cheeseburger and a Twinkie.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
Well, they already, Kevin, you mentioned that you like the mechanical angle. Certainly, they already have an artificial pancreas that you can kind of insert into certain diabetics, and it kind of regulates the insulin so that you don't have to take. I guess it's depending on what kind of diabetes you have, 2 to 3 shots per day, and monitoring your blood sugar. Yeah. It just kind of drips. It's a pump that just drips in all day and regulates the insulin.
Actually, there was an amazing article in Wired very recently. Amazing if you follow diabetes, health science, is that the American Diabetes Association and other groups have kind of I don't want to say like kept down automatic, graphing, filtering, and automatic pumps, but they've really, there's groups that have put together what they believe to be really great, better than human judgment insulin pumps, and they've just been kind of kept out of the mainstream because groups are really kind of afraid. Because of course, the worst case scenario there was pretty awful. When Windows crashes, you don't go into a coma. Well, not a real coma, maybe a productivity coma, but with automatic diabetes pumps, there's still a little ways to go in terms of general acceptance. So people are a little
fearful of the robots.
Yeah.
And you got interrupted by a robot there. The Skype thing froze. So finish that last sentence again.
No, I was just trailing off. Robot sugar.
Robot sugar. I'm sold.
Robot Sugar. That was my stripper name in high school.
Yes. It was actually my Kraftwerk cover band.
Sugar and robots. I mean, what more could you ask for? It's like Geek Central.
All right, let's move over to your long-term prediction, Kevin. The sort of flying cars will soon, will take over the world sort of thing. What do you got for us?
Long-term or crazy ass?
Long-term.
Long-term. Okay. Better virtual keyboards, or just basically the elimination of the keyboard, because
nice.
When the iPad came out, I remember they kind of like to halfway sell it to the but it doesn't have a keyboard crowd. They said, look, you can just dock it into a Bluetooth keyboard that we happen to sell, and you can use this Bluetooth mouse or this trackpad that we also happen to sell. And I don't think that's gotten hardly any adoption. Like, I don't think anybody's taking their iPad, bringing it to work, and docking it into a Bluetooth keyboard, because it's actually not that ergonomic. I've seen a setup like that.
I know the person who does that.
Oh, is it Leo?
Brian Cooley from CNET.
Okay.
Actually, I have seen do that on more than one occasion.
I love the idea, because I love the idea of just, it seems like a futuristic thing, like taking your computer and bringing it home and using it on the couch, like the way they want you to use an iPad. But then when you go to work and you have to be, quote unquote productive, just dock it somewhere and use your work keyboard. Or in the future, hopefully, I don't know, it projects an infrared keyboard onto whatever surface you mount it to, or it gets better at understanding handwriting with your fingers or something, just so that if you can take away the keyboard from the laptop, smartphone, every other kind of gadget design, if you remove the need for a keyboard and a good keyboard, it really does amazing things, I think, to gadget design. And so that's what I would love to see, is just really big stretches. I would predict that it will happen, but I'm looking forward to seeing it, stretches in keyboard technology.
What would be really cool in my book is I tried one of those projection onto the table, infrared keyboard things.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool idea, but there's zero tactile feedback. So I would say, tacking on to your cool idea, I think what they should do is figure out a way to electrically charge the air around your fingers, so that when you tap on the Y key, there is a tangible something that tells your finger you tapped it. Just a light little buzz or something that's not electrocuting you or anything weird like that, but a way to sort of positively, electrify the air to create this kind of feedback. Because without that part of it, I think these things are kind of suck. They're really hard to use. With that, I think you could, for people who don't want to look at every key they type, that's true. I mean, you can get away with it on an iPhone because you're kind of looking right at it while you're typing stuff. But when it comes to looking at a screen, I don't want to constantly be looking down, to do it. And, my dad used to middle finger every key, and he stared at it the whole time. That's good for him. But for me, I want to be able to feel that. If they can figure that out, I'm in, man. Let's do it.
I think it'll happen.
Do we need to have it be digital? In other words, finger-based input? Is there another input?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, if you take the two predictions and you meld them together, really all you have is something implanted somewhere in your body, probably somewhere in the brain region, that just kind of reads your mind and types everything out. So instead of even having to speak it, it's like telepathy or...
Yeah. Telekinesis?
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Yes.
Well, because everyone said, voice recognition, and then we won't have to type anymore, except that's annoying in any kind of shared space. You can't just do that. I mean, I know people who have, because they've got RSI, and that's the way it works, and there are ways to work around it. But ideally, you want to silently be able to type without necessarily even using your fingers.
So thought recognition rather than voice recognition.
Yeah. Or it could just be good facial recognition, so that you just mouth the words and they can translate them into words.
Oh,
And you
man,
thought people walking around talking into their Bluetooth headsets looked insane. Could you imagine
it looked
that?
weird, man. Like a big room of cubicles that people just mouth into their computer. That would be so weird.
Or with thought recognition, just some guy sitting in the grocery aisle and staring at a can of soup for 10 minutes, and you don't realize that he's actually emailing his wife about the cabinets that they just ordered.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not saying it won't make you look crazy, but at least people, except for the few lip readers out there, nobody's going to really realize what you're typing.
Yeah, the brain thing would have to get evolved to the point that it knows how to read the thoughts that you're trying to just get out and nothing else, because you can't be in a situation where your brain is typing, dear who it may concern, I blah, 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 oh, I'm hungry, or oh, that douche in the cubicle next to me, he smells like bacon, or whatever. You don't want that stuff just coming out. So it feels like that's a long way off before we get that figured out. Tom actually may be onto something with the middle ground, which is, mouth it until we figure out a way to have that filter work so that our brains aren't just randomly throwing crap up there. That seems dangerous.
Speaking of random crap, our sponsor of today's forecast can stop random crap from showing up in your inbox. Mailroute.info. Whether you've got one user or 50,000 users, they can help your business out by protecting you from spam and viruses. If you've got a domain name and you've got an email address that's overrun, you might want to give MailRoute a try. You can try it absolutely free. Go to mailroute.info. They got a special site set up for listeners to Twitch shows. And not only can you try it out for free, but you can get a 10% off discount for the lifetime of your account. $2 per user per month for 10 users, $30 per user per year for single users. And all you do is you edit your MX record to send your mail through the MailRoute servers. They send it back to you without the spam. And I have not seen a false positive yet, and I've been using this. It's pretty amazing. Check it out, mailroute.info, and we thank them for their support. Let's move on to the crazy ass predictions. And Kevin, we'll stick with you. They're really far out there. It doesn't matter what the timeline is. Just, we're all made of cheese or something. What do you got?
All right, this is really short and probably stupid, but upstate New York will continue to dislike downstate, and downstate will continue to dislike upstate, despite upstate getting manufacturing jobs, high-speed rail, tax parity, and access to cheap Broadway tickets.
So Buffalo will become a paradise, and yet downstate will still hate it.
Yes, exactly. Upstate will get everything it wants, and people downstate will still refer to it as everything north of 110th is just Appalachia, and we'll still continue to look down at New York City and say, "Arr, my tax money," even if there's parity.
I think you could widen that prediction across many different states. I think Northern California, Southern California, Chicago, and the rest of Illinois. I mean, I think that will apply forever, no matter what happens.
Salt Lake City and the rest of Utah, by the way. That applies here as well.
My crazy ass prediction is basically parochialism forever.
We will all always hate someone nearby.
That is correct.
I think you've probably, sadly, made the most accurate prediction anyone has made on FourCast.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, this isn't crazy accurate predictions is what we told him before the show, so you came prepared.
I know. It seems crazy ass. It seems like we should be able to solve the issue, but it never will be that way.
Yeah, you would think that so I don't know. Well, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's just every example I could think of. It's like London. Yeah, no, the rest of it, pretty much hate all those snotty Londoners. Paris, Belgium, I hate Paris. I was just talking to Sarah Lane about that. Sperling, can you possibly save us here? Is there an example that would counter this, or are we doomed to parochialism?
I think we're until the aliens invade, in which case we'll all love one another because we're all humans and they're just blobs. I think, or Martians or whatever they happen to be. Until that happens, I think we'll all just go on hating one another the way we always have.
Indeed, God bless this world.
The only thing worse than those invading insect-like androids that killed my mother? New Jersey! That'll be us. Wow, okay, that's sad. Sperling, your crazy-ass prediction. It can be even crazier than that, but at least maybe uplifting.
Okay, well, I could stick with biology and medicine. with genetic engineering and a Gattaca-like thing, or I could go with the self-driving cars or the instant space travel type thing. I'm trying to think what's more crazy. How about the complete collapse of the American empire, or America, and in the next 200-300 years, America completely dissolving into different countries and states, and another American Revolution.
And then upstate New York actually goes to war.
Right. I think that's kind of more of a complementary rather than like a Gattaca-like scenario that it's Democrats versus Republicans and nobody can get along, and that actually this winds up affecting a democratic republic such as the United States, and we just completely California becomes a country, in which case Schwarzenegger would have been president.
No, he still wasn't born here, though.
Is the solution a giant squid attack a la Watchmen, and then that reunites the country?
That will actually be the only thing that saves us from parochialism, too.
Indeed, giant squid.
Giant squid solves everything.
I don't think I gave away anything there. I'm sorry to anybody who never.
It's a little bit of a spoiler. Maybe spoiler alert yellow.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't. If you watch the movie, you'll be fine because.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was a burnt umber spoiler alert.
But yeah, I think if you're ever playing rock paper scissors, throw giant squid. Beats everything. Sperling, I actually wrote a novel about the breakup of the United States into separate countries, so this is near and dear to my heart.
Oh, really? Oh, wait. That's right. I wish I could have said that I actually planned that, but I didn't. Although we should give your novel a plug right now, and it's Amazon link to the Amazon.
Well, it's called Boiling Point, and if you go to subbrilliant.com/boiling point, you can get links to free versions of it, Creative Commons PDFs, and all that digitally, or you can buy a book from any online bookstore. But the reason I bring it up was less to plug it, although sure, why not? But more to what inspired me for that was the 9 Nations of North America, which was a book by Joel Garreau that pointed out that various regions of North America had more in common with each other than they had with other parts, even in the same country. So, for instance, Ecotopia was British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and parts of Northern California, because they all really had the same view on the way humans would live, much different than the Rust Belt or the factory or the foundry, I think he called it, which was all those Rust Belt towns like Detroit and Chicago and Cincinnati and Cleveland that were all very much built around industry and had a common experience of the decline of industry. So I wonder, and this is what I played around with the novel, and I'm not sure I got it right, but I wonder what would be the pressures that break this artificial bond we all share because we're Canadians or we're Mexicans or we're Americans, United States style, and actually go to the more natural bond that we have to a region that we live in because we share beliefs with the predominant culture there, we share a way of living, and we enjoy that.
Well, I think economic, of course, is one reason, and geologic or environmental would be another reason. So if there was a natural disaster that, where half the United States got lopped off, obviously there'd be some problems there. But I think ultimately, as you see with Egypt right now, that more and more the U.S. is being put into a world where they aren't really the economic superpower that they once were, and because of that, our wages are falling. Our quality of life is kind of readjusting itself to the rest of the world, so that we're, in a worldwide market, we're all kind of, there's kind of a level playing field is being created. And since the U.S. is kind of so high, it's slowly beginning to work its way back to a middle ground, and that's going to make some people upset, and a lot of people are going to be disenfranchised. And I think it's really the disenfranchising of human beings that will lead to it. So I would say it's probably something more economic than anything else.
Scott, what do you think?
Sorry, that whole last bit got cut out.
Oh no! Basically, we decided to divide Utah between New York, Southern California, and Northern California.
Let's do that. That'd be fine. As long as I get to be on the, let's see, where do I want to be? Southern California side, I'll be fine with that. I heard something about economics, something, and then a lot of.
Basically, Sperling was saying the economics would be the thing that ends up driving a wedge and causing something to happen.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And it's also, I mean, I caught a bunch of what you said, Tom, about the idea that we would be not marginalized, is not the right word, but would be cut into chunks based on common interest. And it seems like it would be, it's easy for me to boil it down in my head anyway, but I see a bunch of farmers that are really interested in big swaths of farmland, because that's what they do. They farm the land. They kind of have cornered the market on foodstuffs. And if we're blocked off from the rest of the world, then we would rely on New Kansas, or whatever we're going to call it, to provide us all the corn and the cabbage and the other stuff that we need. And then I see maybe, chunks of California, Arizona, even Utah being in kind of a conglomerate that is very tech heavy and is providing a lot of infrastructure for how the country communicates. That idea seems pretty reasonable to me. And I hope that was kind of along the lines of what he was saying, but it does seem like you would have economic disparity between those groups. So you would have one that controlled the food but didn't really control large sums of money, and you'd have others that controlled large sums of money simply because they housed maybe the most universities, or they had the most. I don't know how that would happen exactly, especially if we're cut off from the rest of the world. But money always plays a role.
The most banks, right? I mean, today it would be whoever controls the most banks has the most money. I mean, that's the way. Yeah, finance. High finance.
Yeah, and whoever that is that New York? Is that, I don't know, but it's whoever that is going to have an advantage in that way. But then you can get kind of scrappy and say, well, all the southern states have more guns than the rest of us, so they're kind of you either kind of obey whatever rules they want to have in terms of treaties and whatever, or they're going to call some of the shots, at least through violent action. I'm not saying the South is doing that now, folks. It's all hypothetical. I'm just saying.
What's your email address so that they can actually send directly to them? Because I'm sure Tom doesn't want to see them.
Kevin, are we just all high here?
Well, if I live in Banktopia and I can't get California avocados, I'm defeated. I don't care how much financial wherewithal I have. If I can't get citrus fruit and avocados, I'll just give up. I'll just move, or
Well, there's no reason we couldn't have free trade.
Regions. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at the EU right now. They're having their problems. France and Germany want certain reforms, and they want everybody to adhere to the same economic policies. And now everybody's fighting amongst themselves. I think there's 17 nations in the EU that use the euro, and they're all fighting amongst themselves. So it's not as easy as economic reform and economic problems cause quite the strife. I mean, that's how all of these problems started in the Middle East. This time around, of course, by this time around, I mean the last several weeks, not the last several years. So, I think ultimately I'd have to go with economic over environmental.
I don't know. I think you're right, but I think Kevin does bring a big point about avocados.
The avocado clause. Don't count that out.
He who controls the guacamole.
We'll have to come up with an internet filter that removes half the recipes on the internet because they all rely on things from California. So,
right.
I don't like this future.
Well, that's the other thing is certain regions could survive on their own. California has enough of an economy. If California itself can stay together, it has enough of an economy to survive on its own. The fact that California is in such horrible financial straits and is, in some places seen to be on the verge of bankruptcy and yet still operates as well as it does, shows how much of an economic powerhouse it is. And I think, some of it's arguably, we can go on forever about the problems in California, but some people argue that California was independent, it actually would be doing better financially than it is as a member of the United States. But I don't think that anybody wants to go off on their own these days, unless you're South Sudan and you're in a position where you're it's so bad to stay that nothing could get worse and you want self-determination. But I think most countries want to be part of a larger organization that allows for a feeling of security and cooperation and free trade zones, but they want local autonomy. So I actually feel like that's where things are going. The United States will never go away, but maybe in 1,000 years or less, it will become sort of a non-governmental organization. It will be superseded, and a whole different way of organizing world politics will exist, and there will still be a United States, but it won't be the way we think of it now as a nation. It will be more of just like an operating zone.
Isn't that kind of what the EU is? I mean, the European Union is essentially that. And if you could take yourself back 1,000 years and say, all right, everybody round yourselves up, got this really cool future to tell you about. Y'all are going to be together and using common currency. What do you think about that? People would flip out and hang you. It would have been crazy talk back then, just like it's crazy talk now. But I agree with Tom.
Wouldn't they say, I'm sorry, I don't understand you. You're speaking a funny language that I've never heard before. 1,000 years ago?
Now
we all talk one another's language, and English seems to be predominantly the language being spoken as a utilitarian language.
And that April with the Shara Sutta, that's not even 1,000. It sounds weird.
But yeah, I can't believe, I didn't go with, you asked what it would be that would break us up. I went with economic and environmental. I can't believe I didn't go with religion, because really that's what has done it in years past and throughout history. I think one of the most recent best examples is in Ireland, where you have Northern Ireland and, Ireland itself, Northern Ireland being a part of the United Kingdom and Ireland being a republic of its own, and they're split between Catholics and Protestants. So that very well, it could be religion or the economy.
All right, I believe we have come to the 4 questions part of the show, Scott.
This is the 4 questions part of the show. You're absolutely right, Tom. This is where we get to ask our guests 4 questions, rapid fire style. That means 2 things. They have to answer from the gut, and they don't have time to think about it. Are you guys ready for your 4 questions?
Bring it on.
Yes.
All right, Sperling, I'm going to ask you my questions. So are you sitting comfortably as we ask traditionally of our guests?
Yes, I'm sitting comfortably, though I am tempted to stand for this one. But
all right.
That's a callback for those of you not familiar with humor.
That's a good callback. All right, here's your first question. When we try and take Mars from the Martians and colonize it with humans, what weapons do you take with you? A lightsaber or a personal hand phaser?
Personal hand phaser.
Oh, all right.
I have no idea why. I just like the sound of it.
All right, because you're a lover, not a fighter. You want to just stun, not kill. I understand.
Oh, wait. Personal hand phasers can't kill? Then definitely lightsaber.
No. Well, they can, but you have to switch them off. Lightsaber's nice because you can kill and cauterize, so it's a very clean kill.
And it's from a more civilized age.
That's right. Imagine the ultimate future national holiday. What would it be?
A future national holiday?
Yeah, one that we don't have yet.
Well, since this is a prediction show, how about a holiday for an American leader that has been assassinated that hasn't even been born yet?
Whoa.
Bum, bum, bum.
All right, you win. Game over. Show's out. We're done.
That just blew my mind.
Next question, second to last question. What was more ahead of its time, the digital watch or the Flowbee?
Wow.
You really have to think about that one.
I'm going to go with, you know what? The Flowbee, because people still aren't using it. So obviously it was way ahead of its time. People use a digital watch, so obviously it was of the time. Whereas the Flowbee, we're still making fun of it.
You've run rings around him logically, you know.
Yeah. Your final question. In 2075, our pets will be made of the DNA of dead celebrities and Labrador retrievers. What celebrity do you mix with your dog?
Oh, my gosh. Well, what celebrity do you mix with your dog? There's Ernest Borgnine for bulldogs. I don't know.
Yes. If the answer is Ernest Borgnine, again, you win. Nice work.
I'll stand there. I call.
All right, good job.
Excellent. Kevin, we move on to you. Are you sitting comfortably?
I am.
Good, then we'll begin. Question number 1. How many limbs will humans have in 1,000 years?
Ernest Borgnine.
That isn't a number that I know.
I didn't even get it right. They'll have 5, and they'll count their internal GPS chip as a 5th limb, phantom limb.
The famous phantom limb. Question number 2. If we let the robots rule, will they really eliminate us all?
There are levels of survival they're prepared to accept.
What level do you think?
Oh, that was a Matrix reference. I'm sorry. Nobody likes that movie anymore. I'm sorry. Never mind.
I totally missed that. That's amazing. Now that you've said that, I remember that line.
The architect says it when he's in that all-white room.
Right,
It's from the second movie. It doesn't even count. That's an NA answer.
So essentially, batteries is the level they will accept us at.
Pretty much, yep.
Question number 3. If we form a colony on Mars, how long before it revolts against us?
However long it takes for the McDonald's shipments to stop due to international pirates. Inner space pirates.
Interspace pilots. Still oddly off the coast of Somalia, but launching into space.
Yes, and they'll become immensely popular in the media for no particular reason, just because the media loves pirates.
Right. Because they'll actually dress like pirates.
Arr.
Finally. Question number 4. What will be that final solution to the energy problem, that totally renewable, non-polluting source of energy?
It's not carving off New York and letting it float into the sea.
Not renewable.
Today. Not renewable.
It's not renewable.
That is, you can only do that once.
Yeah.
That is true. I guess the gas from people on Mars, as our McDonald's shipments continue to, imbue and give them more and more reason to love us, and we just collect the gas, and it becomes our fuel source that comes back on the other ships that also are hijacked by inner space pirates.
Pirates get everything in your future.
Yes, they're a constant problem, much like parochialism.
I think
And that's a callback to.
he can do it too, okay?
That's right.
I think if we've learned anything today, it's that children should grow up to be pirates.
Indeed. It's a very colonial future we all see.
A colonial...
And robots and sugar go together. Don't forget that. Robots
Right.
and sugar.
That's correct.
Robot Sugar will be our title, I have a feeling. All right, that's it. Thank you both for being on FourCast, sharing your visions of the future with us. Sperling, let folks know where they can find your podcast and anything else you do online.
You can go to showbizsandbox.com, and there's ways to subscribe there. I'm on Twitter, @Sperling is the username to look up. And I guess you could go to iTunes and look for the Showbiz Sandbox podcast there. And please, I don't know how many people are in this chat room, but if everybody in the chat room went and subscribed right now, I can finally test out my experiment to see how many subscriptions it takes to make the Hot 100 podcast list on iTunes.
Do it now!
Nice.
Also, thank you for joining us, Kevin Purdy, contributing editor at lifehacker.com. Tell us about that and also your book.
Okay. Lifehacker.com. I don't know if you heard anybody, but we had a big redesign today. Yes. Very well talked about in many circles. And I'm a contributing editor there, and I'm also the author of the Complete Android Guide at CompleteAndroidGuide.com, which is a how-to guide for these little phones that will someday rule us all.
Scott Johnson, another successful show.
Yeah, I would say so. Don't forget, I work weekends at the Purple Bunny as a Robot Sugar. I work the pole on Friday nights. It's pretty awesome. Tom, this has been another great show. I absolutely love doing the show each and every week. Just a quick plug if the listeners are interested in hearing my voice more than once a week. I do a morning show now with Brian Ibbett, the man in the booth, every Monday through Thursday. That's at 7 a.m. Pacific time over at frogpants.com/TMS. And we are having a ball with that show. So come join the fun.
All right, folks, don't forget that you can find us online at fourcastpodcast.com, where you can leave us a comment, or you can send us an email, fourcastpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, we'll see you in the future.
But it's only 32 years away.
Wait.